Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. It is match day. Finally, we are back and Manchester United are playing football against Newport County away in the FA Cup. The magic of the cup is back. Also, the FA Cup draw will be taking place at half-time in the Liverpool-Norwich game, which is happening right now. It's currently a draw, so we can be covering that as well. But welcome everyone to the build-up show. I am joined by the lovely Kev. Kev, how are you? Van Cam this morning. And now on the build-up today, football's back. It's
very rare that anybody ever uses my name and lovely in the same sentence, so fair play to you there. But yes, you mentioned it, the magic of the FA Cup. It's great to be kind of building up to a game of football. Obviously, we've not had a game for a couple of weeks. Really interested. I'm interested to see team selection. Obviously, it's Newport, the you know, very low down in the football pyramid in comparison to Manchester United. But yeah, football's back. This is what we do here on the United Stand, isn't it? Exactly.
Newport County are in League Two. We should be beating them, like, let's be honest. But that's why I'm excited, Kev, because obviously with Man United, you can never say 100%. But I'm hoping with today's game, we'll get to see players, you know, get the confidence up, get a good first performance back in. Obviously, the likes of Casemiro and Martinez coming back. Hopefully, they'll get some minutes as well. Ahmad is back as well. I'm hoping we'll get to see him. And it'll be nice just to see the players hopefully playing with a bit of confidence.
The strange thing is, you look at a team like, say, a Manchester City or a Liverpool, they can afford, at this moment in time, to kind of rotate their squad. The funny thing for Ten Hag is, at the minute, when you think, in terms of football, we've had a rubbish season. So nobody kind of deserves a rest in this team. Mm-hmm. And yes, like you say, we have got players coming back. I would love to see Martinez starting. I think, you know, he'll be knocking at the door now. He'll be ready for a start, Manchester United, and that's key, getting these players back. But in terms of rotating, like I say, nobody has pulled up trees at Manchester United this season. You couldn't really say anybody deserves a rest. So it's a tricky one in the sense of team selection, how Ten Hag is going to go about this. I'm a firm believer, just play the strongest team and get the game won. You know, no disrespect to Newport at the end of the day, but like you just said before, you know, on paper, we're miles better. Man for man, we've got a team littered with international stars, and by God, I just hope that there's not an upset on the cards today, because in terms of the FA Cup, it'd be one of the biggest sort of cup shocks in the history of the FA Cup if United were somehow not to be in the draw for the next round, you know, come the end of today.
There's been so many cup shocks over the years, but this would be a huge one for sure. I mean, I hope it doesn't happen. But we are going to talk about the Marcus Rashford news. Everybody's talking about it, and we are going to have our say on it, and we'll bring it in now, Kev.
Yeah.
So breaking, Marcus Rashford not well enough to be in the squad for Newport following illness. He has stayed at Carrington to train as he recovers. What do you make of that statement, Kev?
Listen, I think everybody's seen the video coming out. Obviously, he was in a nightclub. So I've had people try and defend him, which, listen, it's fair enough. People are coming at me. They're saying George Best used to get up to this, right? Different eras. And for starters, let's never mention Marcus Rashford and George Best in the same conversation, because George Best did it out on the field for Manchester United, you know, and it's not a great look. It is not a great look for Marcus Rashford. However you want to try and dress this up, the lad in the video is actually saying, you know, don't film him, you're going to get him into trouble. Can he be that daft? That he knows, you know, he's going to get filmed if he's out and about. Everybody's got a phone in the hand these days, so it's not a great look. And you think INEOS have come in, or they're set to announce officially. The people at the top, it's starting to change at United now, the structure, and I think it's just not a great look. People are going to look at this and go, not a great look, and it isn't, however you dress it up.
I'm going to say my piece on it, because I put out a tweet when the news initially came out that he was out only on the Wednesday, and you know, he reported ill on the Friday, whatever the conversation was, when we didn't realise he was actually out as well the day before training. And I put out saying, you know, I'm a professional athlete personally, this is just my personal preference, and everyone says, well, you're not a professional athlete. No, correct, I'm not. But if I was, I would not be going out clubbing nearly every week. And people saying, how do you know he goes out nearly every week? I'm not going to get into that conversation.
Yeah.
But what I am going to say is it's not a one-off occurrence. It's just not. And that's quite well known. But when you look at the situation with Marcus Rashford, and you just look at this instance in general, I am nowhere near saying players should never go out, they should never be able to go to a club, they should never be able to go and have a good time. Of course they can. Like, players, whatever they do in their personal life, that is up to them. They should be able to have a life. I completely agree with that. But if you're on nearly 400 grand a week, you're Man United's star player, Man United are terrible this season, you've been really poor this season, I don't expect you to be out clubbing and missing training off the back of it, because let's be honest, missing training when you're getting a private jet back in from Belfast at earliest hours of the morning because you're ill. Well, he was ill a few weeks ago. Like, it just doesn't look good. Yeah. And when you look at it like that, do what you want off the pitch, but don't have it affect your football, don't have it affect your training. And for me, I feel like you can never be fully at your best as a footballer if you're not doing what's best for your body constantly. And to be the best, you have to make sacrifices. You do. That's part and parcel of being a professional athlete. You have to make sacrifices. You know, sometimes you do it later on in your career. You have to make decisions. And I just feel like, you know, top pro footballers, you look at the likes of the Rodris, the De Bruynes, the Salahs. I mean, look at Cristiano Ronaldo, his regime, for goodness sake. Not everyone follows that path, of course they don't. But as a professional athlete, you have to be aware of who you are and your situations. And I've always supported Rashford. I always want him to be the player I think he can be. But I'm really disappointed, to be honest, because
it's not a great look,
don't miss training off the back of being out. Like, just don't do it. Yeah. Especially this, like you said, the situation we're in right now. We're in such a poor season. I mean, INEOS has just come in. You think you're going to be trying to make an impression. It just doesn't look good, in my opinion.
It clearly isn't a great look, but it comes down to the fact that he's not doing it on the pitch. I think some people would probably let him off slightly if he was putting in the performances on the field, but some does not sit right. The club coming out, Ten Hag, somebody's covering something up because, is he ill? Is he hungover? I don't know. It is not a great look. You look at past players, like I think back to the days of David Beckham at Manchester United, was in trouble for travelling to London, the night before a game to go and see Victoria and stuff. But the one thing you would always say about David Beckham was he did it on a Saturday afternoon. You could never, ever, performance levels, he always give, 100% on the field. And that's where I feel with Rashford at the minute, people are going to look at this and they will jump on it because he's not doing it on the field, so...
That's what I mean. If he was performing like week in, week out, I think people would still have an issue with the missing training off the back of it sort of situation. Yeah. And that's just us inferring. The club have said it's due to illness, not because he was out. That's just us thinking, well, that looks a bit weird, like that situation. So it's not set in stone. It's just what we're inferring there. But like you said, if he was doing it on the pitch week in, week out, like people probably wouldn't have a problem. When they started to, if the training's missed, then people would be like, what's going on here? But it's the fact of the matter is he's been poor by his standards this season. It's like you think you'd be doing everything to kind of get yourself back to the top, stay out of the limelight.
Limelight, exactly.
And it's just like one thing after another. And I think what a lot of people think about is, well, the Jadon Sancho situation. How is Rashford going to be treated in comparison to Jadon Sancho? They are different situations, but Sancho's wasn't because of talent or anything like that. It was because of disciplinary reasons in the sense of he was late to training. He obviously called out Ten Hag on social media. Well, if Rashford's late to training because he's out, and obviously I think Ten Hag said something about it after the derby, how he's had spoken to Rashford about not kind of doing that sort of thing again. And it'll be interesting to see how Ten Hag handles it. I mean, get your super chats in on how you think Erik Ten Hag should handle this and what you think Ten Hag should do with the Rashford situation. I mean, if you're Ten Hag now, what do you do with this situation? Do you think they're going to cover it up? Do you think they're going to just ignore it?
Well, he kind of has covered it up. Because if Ten Hag's coming out and saying that he's ill, now listen, we can make whatever we want. I don't personally think it is a great look, but I mentioned earlier that the new owners are going to come in. The structure starts from the top. They'll be looking at issues like this. I don't think there's nowhere to hide anymore. He's the highest paid player at the club. He's not putting performances in on the field. So Ten Hag's got a massive call here, and he can't just stay in purely off reputation, what he did last season. There's other players that will give more. and it really isn't a great look. So yes, Ten Hag will. The new owners will look at it as well. It's not a great look. You know, you think of the bad news off field that we've had at Manchester United recently. This is just one more headache that Manchester United, as a club, did not need. And for me, Marcus Rashford, he's brought this on himself. You know, he's created this story. He's put himself, like you said, in the limelight, and United have to pick up the pieces. But behind closed doors, if I'm Ten Hag, I'm bringing him in. You know, I'm having a sit down with him, and it literally is going to go along the lines of this has to stop. Again, I'm not saying don't go out and don't enjoy yourself. I just think that there's a time and a place, basically.
That's what I mean. Like, I'm not saying Rashford should never be able to go to a club in his life. Of course he should be. Like, birthdays, you know, his friends, like, birthdays and, like, going out and, like, if you want the occasional, you know, when you're on your rest days and, like, if he's not impacting the club and the football, do what you want. Of course it is. But if it starts impacting the club that we support, it's just, for me, it just looks like it's if you're missing training off the back of being out, which is what it looks like, that's disrespectful, I think. I feel like it is anyway. I mean, look at Fergie back in the day when he was ringing David Beckham on his honeymoon telling him to come back early. Exactly. Could you imagine if that happened now?
Standards,
obviously different eras and everything like that, but
in my day job, right, if I was in the pub last night and one of my bosses sees me and then the next day I ring in ill, you know, I'm getting sacked. They'll know exactly why I've rang in ill the next day. So it's like, or rang in sick. It's like,
well, for example, Kev,
it's affecting me work.
If I was to go out to Sunday Club at China White tonight on a Sunday night and I say, sorry, Ma, I can't do the 10 a.m. in the morning, I'm ill. He's going to be like, hang on a second.
Exactly, and you're posting all over Instagram or something and you tagged yourself there.
And next thing you know, like, someone's posting a video, Beth's in China White. Like, people are going to be like, what's going on? So that doesn't mean I should never go out again in my life. It just means make sure it doesn't impact your work. And that's the main thing that people are talking about him. I mean, I've done dry January this month.
I've not.
Rashford, get on board with it.
Yeah.
I'm joking. I'm joking. And plus as well, when I talk about these things, people say, so you're saying football shouldn't have a life? Do you have to be in a club all the time to have a life? Like, you know, you don't have to. Of course, enjoy yourself. I'm not saying don't. He can do what he wants. It's his money, his life. But just don't let it affect Man United. That's
what it boils down to at the end of the day, I would say. That absolutely spot on.
Exactly. But got a couple of chats in here. Ian J.G. Wright says, member for 51 months. Do you think it's the end of Rashford? Not at all.
No, not the end. But it's the start of something interesting because Ten Hag, if he's shown faith in this player, and there's only so long you can go on. You know, if somebody keeps letting you down, if he's getting the bad press, the bad headlines, then it comes to a crossroads at a certain stage where United will have to make a decision on Rashford. And at this moment in time, you know, if we heard today that United was selling Marcus Rashford or he's been put up for sale, the club, you know, he's banished to the stands or, you know, training with the youth team or whatever, I don't think too many people would be that bothered. Whereas at this stage last season, he was putting in the goals, and he was doing it on the field. But whereas this season, he's not going to be a huge loss. You know, we've had him, we've left him out the team this year, and we've not been great. But what I'm trying to say is we wouldn't really miss him.
I think that going hand in hand with the fact, you know, a lot of people have accused his performances of not having the right body language, maybe not tracking back enough, and you know, all stuff like that. I just think it all combines to this point where it's like people are just frustrated. Rashford's been he's performed brilliantly for Man United in the past, not this season, but in the past. And you know, he's Manchester born and bred. People love him, and the fans have always supported him. But this sort of situation, I'm never going to come on here and be like, oh yeah, you know, it's one of them. I'm going to say my true opinion, whether I was on here or I wasn't on here as a fan. That doesn't sit right with me.
He's starting to wear thin, and at the age he's at, you know, he's not just broken into the team. He's what you would class now at Manchester United one of the more established senior players, if you want to go down that route.
Exactly, and it's like setting the example for Højlund, Garnacho, Ahmad, and we don't want a team full of party boys. You just not what you want. You want serious athletes that want to compete at the top level, and you can have a good time and also be a serious athlete, but know how to balance it and know when to do it and when not to. And I think that's the issue here. And Kev, I just wanted to kind of ask you lastly, and people get your chats in about this as well. Mario Castro Valdez has said, when you play for Man U, you always have to play the political game. No way to avoid it. We ain't Newport. You are football royalty. You do what matters. KF says he's annoyed me with his celebration against Spurs too. Seems so arrogant when he has been trash all season. I mean,
that's a great point, that, because I think between supporters and Marcus Rashford, I've always stood up for him and stuff, but that little moment against Spurs, you know, it wasn't a match-winning goal. It was clearly a dig at the Man United fans, and I think a few Man United fans have probably turned slightly, you know, of their opinion of Marcus Rashford. You touched on then. You know, he's from Wythenshawe, he's Manchester born and bred and all that. I get all that, but he's not doing it on the field. And that gesture to the United fans, which was more or less like, pipe down, you know, I've just scored. Again, that's not a great look. I don't know where he's going with this.
My brother actually, my little brother, was a huge Rashford fan. Always really liked him, and he even recently, like yesterday, he was saying, Beth, like, I didn't think Rashford was like this. Like what he's been like this season, like just all these little things. Like I don't get it. And I'm like, honestly, people read a lot into stuff, but when you add everything up, it's like for me, he just isn't good enough for a player of his calibre, his potential, his wage, and his stature of who he is at the club. And another thing is, like, he's ill, but he's at Carrington training. Surely if you're ill, you're not at Carrington training, you're in bed, do you know what I mean?
That's the thing. And that's where us as supporters, you know, you can't pull the wool over our eyes. We're being told what Manchester United want, you know, them to think, when in theory, we all know deep down that there's something's being covered up. You know, and it is not a great look. You think last season when he was in form, he was scoring goals, which kind of masked the performances, but the celebration was always, you know, the pointing to the head, and that was what he's kind of said, it's channeling, you know, this kind of thing, shutting down, you know, not listening to anyone. Whereas quite clearly now, whether supporters, you know, he is listening to what supporters are saying, you know, and maybe he is listening to the criticism, he can't take it.
Do you think the statement from the club is protecting him? Because obviously, Tamrilek Scholar here has said, if Sancho or Spintony did this, outrage and dropped, basically saying if Sancho and Antony did this, there'd be outrage and they'd be dropped. Do you think the club is, again, protecting their prize asset, the face of the club, Marcus Rashford, by that statement saying he's ill and continues to train at Carrington, when realistically, if this was maybe a Sancho or an Antony, it would be Ten Hag saying, you know, they're not in the squad due to the fact they didn't come to training? Like, 100%. It does feel like it's one rule for one rule for another, and this is where Ten Hag has to get it right. I don't know if it's just the club protecting Rashford because he's so, you know, he's such a huge asset to them, but this is what needs to change at the club under Sir Jim. Everybody is treated the same. Everybody. Yeah. Like Scott McTominay said, Ten Hag Scott McTominay said in his podcast, Ten Hag wants everyone to wear the same things. He wants everyone to be treated the same. That's maybe why him and Ronaldo didn't end up getting on. Obviously, Ronaldo for me is an exception because of everything he's done in the game. But, you know, Rashford's definitely not Ronaldo. Everyone gets treated the same. And I personally, this is just my opinion, I do think if this was Sancho or Antony, the treatment would be different. And I don't think that's okay. Yeah.
It's a bit like the comments I've said about Antony, you know, if it had cost us $500,000 from Stockport County, he'd be nowhere near that team. The same applies to Marcus Rashford. You just said the word there, asset. That's what we need to get away from, because it is clear that the club are looking at that and they're thinking he's the most paid player. He is an asset money-wise. I don't see why the club should be defending him. And what you will do is you're going to create divide within that squad. I think a lot of people have pointed towards Jadon Sancho, you know, his exit on loan to Borussia Dortmund, but they kind of do look at it and think, well, Antony was getting in this team before him. And if you're training every day, you'd be looking, and, you know, from Sancho's point of view, he's probably thinking he's not done any better than what I did at Manchester United. When you start to create these, you know, these divides in a dressing room, that's exactly what's going to happen. And it will, because if you've got younger people that are coming into this team now, say like a Casemiro Mainoo, who's been the one shining light kind of this season, they will look at Rashford and these players as being the more senior pros in this team. Is it a great player to kind of look up to? You know, would you look at the bad press that Rashford has brought Manchester United's way and think that this is the level I want to be at? You wouldn't, would you? It's not a great look.
It's not a good look. Slick Gossip says Rashford needs to be sold and set example of by INEOS. He's disrespected the club and the fans. I mean, getting your comments about this and what you think. The draw is about to happen, the FA Cup draw, so we'll have that coming to us, Kev. I mean, let's see who Man United get. It's going to be interesting if we can get
through. Let's get through first.
We need to get through, but who we could potentially have.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the last thing I would say on Rashford, and everybody get your comments in on this, on what you would want to happen. Do you think he'll be back in the starting 11 for Wolves next game?
Do you know what? It's so interesting now.
Because if Ten Hag does that, it's huge scrutiny. He's inviting huge scrutiny on. Yeah. Over his man management skills and the favouritism.
If he's got anything about him and, you know, he takes him into a room and talks to him, you need to make an example of a player like this now. And if you want to lay down your roots and say, I'm the boss, then what bigger call is there to, you know, basically drop him on the back of this news? Otherwise, it just opens it up. And we had this under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. You know, people used to say that Carrington was, you know, the training ground was more or less like a daycare for kids. You know, players were turning up late for training. They weren't bothered. You know, Nemanja Matic touched on this, saying that players like Greenwood and that were often just rocking up to training late. So when you talk about structure, you have to have a balance. You also have to have discipline, and that runs through the whole team. The minute you let these players start dictating to you, you lose sense of authority within that squad. And that's why so many managers, we talk about player power, how many players have kind of, you know, run the show, whereas really it should stop with the manager. You look at Pep Guardiola at City,
yeah,
you know, he doesn't mess about. You know, I think it comes as a shock when he sold Cancelo, but then you hear the stories that you know there's a what do you call it, a training ground bust up with Phil Foden and Cancelo, and that was he just go. You know, he's ruthless. You have to be. We've had too many passengers in this Manchester United team over the years collecting great wages. The start of it has to be now, and you have to start breaking it up.
The Cancelo thing's mad because he was, for me, the best fullback in the league. If not
nobody's seen that coming.
Number 7, unreal, had a bit of a pop at Pep in training. Next thing you know, he's gone.
Yeah.
And
you have
United
to be
would
ruthless.
never do that.
No.
But
it sets a precedence then for the other players in this team.
No one's bigger than the club.
Exactly. You need to, you know, lay down the law. That's what Ten Hag needs to do. And I hear loads of United fans tell me Ten Hag's not the man because his man management is shocking. You know, we don't know what's happening behind the scenes, but by God, he's had some, you know, player issues to deal with.
But I think they're a build-up of really... I think it's a build-up of a lack of discipline and player power over the years, and Ten Hag's got to deal with it all.
It is, and he's left to pick up the pieces. He's had Ronaldo to deal with. He had to make the call on De Gea, which is an argument
for me, I think Ronaldo was a bit of an exception.
Yeah, but he still had to do it, and you create that divide because then you're going to get supporters, you know, that support Ronaldo probably more than Manchester United could not believe that they got rid. The Greenwood thing you couldn't have foreseen happening. He still had to deal with it. And the Sancho problem as well. It's just one thing after another. So the last thing you need now is Marcus Rashford causing problems at Manchester United off the field.
Glenn Cheddar says INEOS are all about small wins and it's as quickly as possible. Protecting Rashford is a small win because we're skint. I mean, that's the thing, and Rashford knows this. We have no strikers till the rest of the season, bar Højlund and Rashford. So that's where we're at right now. I mean, let's talk about today's game, Kev. The draw is happening now, so when Man United come out, I will speak about it and get in the chat as well. But I want your guys' opinions. Make sure you get your chats in around this. When we're talking about starting 11 today, we know Maguire's back in the squad. Also, young, I think he's 18-year-old keeper Harrison has been brought into the squad, which is lovely to see. Apparently very appreciated by Erik Ten Hag and his coaching staff. I mean, Ten Hag isn't afraid to give young players a chance as long as you're good enough. And after speaking to Travis Binion and speaking to a lot of prominent figures in and around the academy at Manchester United, that is the message under Ten Hag. If not everyone's going to just get a token debut, but if you're good enough, Ten Hag will give you an opportunity. But obviously, 17-year-old goalkeeper Harrison is in the FA Cup squad. Obviously, I don't think he won't get on, but still exciting for him, a good opportunity and highly thought of throughout the club by Ten Hag and his coaching staff. Hopefully another Carrington star coming through the ranks. But let's talk about the front three. What would your front three be for today's game? And everyone get your super chats in as well. What would your front three be and why? Because I know people will have different ones and I'll be interested to see.
As a front three for this game, it's been a bit of an issue, bit of a problem area, I'd say, getting this front three to click. But I think Højlund certainly goes up top. Obviously, the news breaking over the last week about Antony Martial, but it's not really breaking news, is it? He's constantly injured. And then I think a lot of supporters today would probably want to see Ahmad in there, given a chance. I think he's had cameo roles. You've looked at it. He's done no worse than anybody else. You look at a kind of Antony, who is hot and cold. Well, probably not even hot, really, is he? He's just no consistency at all. And I think Garnacho probably starts as well for me as a front three. I think that's a strong front three. And I touch back on, it's just a shame.
Oh, we've been drawn.
Oh.
We've been drawn against either Bristol City or Nottingham Forest. Another away draw for Manchester United if we get through. Bristol or Nottingham Forest away is who Manchester United will face. I'm not going to lie, I'm very happy with that.
Take that every day of the week. Like you say, we have to get the business of actually getting through, but when you look at, obviously, Liverpool currently playing, but you'd think that they'd still be in it later on. Manchester City are through. I've said this a few weeks ago. The magic of the FA Cup is the fact that, you know, as long as you can keep separated from these better teams, maybe until, you know, you actually meet them in a final, the cup draws can be kind to you. And I would say that it's been very kind to us there if we make it through. Because there was other potential banana skins in there that you certainly wouldn't have wanted.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, obviously you want to avoid a Liverpool or a Man City or even a Villa, Chelsea, teams like that. I mean, Chelsea, we could do them. But in terms of a draw that we could get, I'm very happy with Bristol or Nottingham Forest. Obviously, you'd think Forest would win that game. We'd want Bristol to win it. They're the easier team to go against. Forest obviously did a number on us in the Forest ground. Forest ground isn't an easy place to go to, but I feel like in the FA Cup, when this is the only competition we've got left to fight for, I think we can get through that draw.
It's almost like a home game, isn't it? Because in theory, the allocation that the away fans get, you get a full stand, really, of United fans. You know, there'd be thousands of them there, and that's what a great thing about the FA Cup. You know, I hear a lot of people say that maybe a lot of the younger viewers don't get the romance of the FA Cup, but for somebody my age, I love it. You know, I was brought up on it, and yes, it's not the most prestigious trophy. People look at the Premier League, Champions League being like the kind of icing, that's the main one, but the FA Cup's, it's great. Ricky's
just texted me saying that's us out because Alanga plays for Forest.
Down with the negativity, Ricky.
Ricky loves Forest. But yeah, he says that's us out. That's hilarious. No, I do think we can get through that game. It'll be a good game, though. Yeah. It'll be a tough game. City, of course, have drawn Luton.
Of course they have.
Come on, Luton.
Yeah.
I really like Rob Edwards and I like that Luton team, but
they get some draws, Man City, don't they? Jesus.
I don't think there's a chance, to be honest with you. And I mean, Ladio says breaking and Arna's been photographed arriving in the Newport Stadium. Are you having a laugh? Are you having a laugh? He's got his private jet into the Newport Stadium. Did you see that meme online? It was like a player parachuting into the stadium. It's like Anana today, making sure Binday doesn't take his spot. I mean, Kev.
That's an interesting one.
Obviously, amazing. We've got either Forest or we've got Bristol away in the next round of the FA Cup if we get through. Forest, obviously, the more difficult game at the City ground, but I still think it's a decent draw for Manchester United. We've got to focus on ourselves here and keep getting through as many rounds as possible. But in terms of today's game, Kev, and get your comments in as well, we're a community here. Binday, first start. Let's hope he gets a little bit of action, not too much. But I'm excited to see him here.
Because I think this call could have been made a bit earlier. I think a lot of us looked at the Tottenham game and were thinking, well, he's going to have to play at some stage because we knew that Anana was obviously going away to the African Cup of Nations. So it's a difficult game to judge him on today because from a United fan's perspective, you're hoping that he doesn't have too much to do. And really, he shouldn't have too much to do. So you'd think he would be a safe pair of hands. And nobody's really, we've not seen him. So how can you judge him? So it's a difficult game to judge him on because, like I say, you wouldn't expect him to have too much to do. But if there's one thing that Anana needs at this moment in time, is a bit of healthy competition.
Exactly.
Because he's not been great this season. I know people dress it up and say on stats and all this nonsense that he's like, what was he, the second, third best keeper in the Premier League. We watch him every week. He was almost solely responsible for us exiting the Champions League this season. Some of the mistakes have been absolutely horrendous. You know, we're talking about basic fundamentals of football. He's keeping the ball out the net. You know, don't get me wrong, he's great playing out from the back and that, but when it comes down to it, some of the mistakes he's made, absolutely horrendous this season.
Agree, and I hope Bindeer has a good game because he needs some competition. Team news is in. Team news is in, everybody, and it looks like a strong team. There's probably only one thing in here that I would change, so I'm absolutely buzzing for this. Let me just check that I've got the right thing here. So I'm just looking through.
You're trying to work out?
Trying to work out. Yes, okay, yes. I'm buzzing with this. Right, so we've got Bindeer in goal.
Yep.
We've got a back four of Diogo Dalot, Rafael Varane, Lisandro Martinez.
He's back.
And Luke Shaw.
Butcher. Oh,
that's
yes.
our best back four. That was our back four last season that got us through some good times. So we've got Dalot, we've got Martinez, we've got Varane, and we've got Luke Shaw. And then the midfield, Casemiro's back, Kobbie Mainoo and Bruno Fernandes.
Casemiro.
Yes.
The old... You give Mick Freddick's thing back in the day. It's time for Casemiro.
And do you know what it is? We've been waiting for Casemiro for such a long time, and we were so dreading the fact that Ten Hag was going to substitute Mainoo for Casemiro, and that he wouldn't play them together because obviously he's been playing Mainoo as a 6. But for me, Mainoo and Casemiro together is just will complement Bruno. It gives Bruno that free roaming role that he loves to have.
Protection,
because you've got the protection. Casemiro and Mainoo both can get forward as well. Both of them are technically good enough to do that. So I'm buzzing with that. Bruno, obviously the captain, and then a front three of Højlund, Garnacho and Antony. Personally would have preferred Ahmad on the right to Antony, but Antony's Ten Hag signing, he's going to play him, and you've got Højlund and Garnacho there as well. So all in all, a good team. And then the substitutes, Heaton, Evans, Kumbuala, Maguire, Ahmad, Eriksson, Forson, McTominay and Pellistri. So you have McTominay, Pellistri, Eriksson, Forson, Ahmad off the bench. It's a decent squad and decent team, isn't it?
Well, I said earlier, we are not in the position to be resting players. You know, if we were competitive, let's say we were in the top 4 or we're making some kind of fight of it, you would afford some players a day off today and say, you know, put your feet up. You know, we'll bring in some of the youth team players, but because we've been that awful this season, we are not afforded that luxury. And I expected Ten Hag to go strong. You've got the likes of Lisandro Martinez coming back in, who was a huge part of Manchester United being a success last season, because it was a successful season. It's a huge plus. You know, you want to get minutes into his legs, so you're getting him back into the team. And if you're Kobbie Mainoo today, coming out, you know, playing next to Casemiro, he must be absolutely buzzing. As an 18-year-old, he must be looking and thinking, you know, all his dreams have come true, because a player like Casemiro, you can only learn from him. Kobbie Mainoo will be absolutely buzzing today, and it won't. Oh, my mind's just gone then, sorry.
No, he'll be buzzing playing with Casemiro. No, you're absolutely right on that. And Sam's just putting the on Twitter, Eric thinks we're playing Liverpool. I love it. I mean, he's gone very full strength. And I actually think people are like, why is he playing that lineup against Newport? Well, one, it's our only chance of a trophy this season. He's got to go strong. And two, you want to get this team playing together. We've not even seen Mainoo and Casemiro play together all season. That back four, has it played together maybe once this season? Yeah. I don't even know. Like, they've barely gelled. That bar Antony, and I mean, the jaw is out on Bindeer and Onana, to be honest, at the moment. For me, is our best team. Like, our absolute best team. We've got to get it going.
We've had about 8 or 9 different centre-back pairings this season, and that really is starting to revert back to our strongest back four there, 100%. So he's gone strong. You can't ask for much more than that. I'm a firm believer in play your strongest team, get the job done. If he wants to make changes, if we're lucky enough to get into the position where we're comfortable, make your changes then. You know, start to plan for the next game then.
Interesting stuff, breaking news, guys, as well. I forgot to even mention, Wan-Bissaka is not in the squad. Is that a symbol that he could maybe be going in January? There's been a lot of talk about him potentially going to Saudi Arabia. I mean, we've got a few days left, obviously, a little bit of the January transfer window to go, but not long. Strange how Wan-Bissaka isn't in the squad. Interesting
that nothing's, well, I'm sure we'll listen to what the manager has to say before the game, but yeah, if you're a journalist there and you're interviewing Ten Hag, that's certainly a question that you are going to raise. If he comes out and says that he's ill or it's sickness or whatever, then fair enough. But like you just said, there's a few days of this window left, and Wan-Bissaka has been in the news. And I think Manchester United would probably look to do business this January. We need money, don't we, really? And is Wan-Bissaka the first team right back at Manchester United? I think he's lost out in that place, really. I think a lot of people prefer what Dalot brings to the team. 100% as an all-rounded player. I think he does bring more to the party. So possibly Man United might look to cash in.
He might be ill as well. Obviously, Rashford's ill, so there might be an illness going around. But it's strange that Wan-Bissaka isn't in the squad, and obviously with all the rumours circling of him potentially leaving the club, it's an interesting situation. Have to see what Ten Hag says on that, but it's interesting. I don't know why people are complaining about a full-strength lineup. Like I said, chemistry,
what are we supposed to do?
Getting a team together. I think it's the perfect play by Erik Ten Hag. I'm going to be honest. One thing I would say is someone to look out for today, Kev. Antony. A lot of people in the chat saying they'd rather Ahmad be starting, they'd rather Pellistri be starting. Antony is under a bit of heat by United fans for just not being simply good enough. You're against Newport County today. You've got to show a bit of something, haven't you? Huge pressure on him. Huge pressure today. Again, no disrespect. We're playing Newport, and Antony is getting another chance now. I hope he does well. Obviously, I hope that United win. But if he comes out of this game and doesn't put in a performance, the questions will be asked again. And it does come down to the transfer fee. Erik Ten Hag has showed so much faith in this player, but if he doesn't put it in today as a performance, again, questions are going to be asked. But we're not in the position where we can rotate because we're not in any run of form. The main thing is getting some of the players that were so vital back into this team. And last season, the likes of Martinez was huge for Manchester United. So, it's a huge call by Ten Hag. He's putting faith back in Antony to play him in this team today. We will have to see what he does because Antony, he certainly divides opinion. He splits opinion because he hasn't justified the price tag. And I've sat on here and said before, we shouldn't judge him by the price tag, but really it's down to Ten Hag as well because he's showing so much faith in continuing to back this player at Manchester United. But he's certainly nowhere near the levels of a £90 million player. You expect a lot more. And I've defended him. I've said, listen, defensively, I think Antony is great. He'll track back, but you need more. From a so-called flair player at Manchester United, to justify anywhere near that price tag, he has to be doing more. But again, Ten Hag will have to live and die by these decisions because if he continues and Antony is not performing at Manchester United, it could ultimately cost him his job at Manchester United. He will have to live with the decisions that he's making at Manchester United. Of course you can afford to play Antony against Newport, but against Newport you want to see him producing. But at the same time, it could backfire. It's all right saying it's a free hit today, Newport, what are they, League Two, and it's a great... But if he doesn't put in a performance today, for a fact we'll be on this fan forum after the match saying, why did he start? He didn't play well today, but... He really has to do the business today. He really does. I think he does. I hope there's still some hope there for Antony. He's been poor this season, and like I said, I think Ahmad has shown more than him, and I would be starting him. But one thing, I hope Ahmad gets some time off the bench. And interesting stuff for me personally. I'm just looking at that lineup. I'm just buzzing that Shaw's back, buzzing Martinez and Varane back together. Casemiro and Mainoo is making me excited. I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. It's the spine to the team. We had this last season at a stage, and to see that kind of Varane, Martinez, Casemiro, I was going to say then, at least Højlund up top, you've got a kind of structure to the team. You've got a good balance as well. A lot of people have made comments about should we get rid of Varane, should we get rid of Casemiro this season, and
you need them players in around the younger players. Really interested to see how Mainoo gets on, alongside him today, because it's a really big thing, that, because the centre of the park is such an integral part of the team, and I think once you've got the balance right to that, you'll see, like you said earlier, the likes of Bruno Fernandes should be able to flourish in this, because he's got an option then to do his business in the final third without having to get back and protect the likes of McTominay or Eriksen or whoever it is that you've got in there.
Exactly.
Good balance.
United Nate TV, Kovar got the start for Bayer Leverkusen yesterday. Class. Kovar had so much potential, and obviously he's gone on. He's had his first start in the Bundesliga, and I just wish him all the best because he's a good keeper. Lee G's says, "Is this our strongest lineup man as Antony?" I think so. Yeah. I mean, there's a debate on the Bindier and Arna thing, because obviously I've not seen Bindier yet, so I can't really comment, but I'll tell you when I see more about him. But I think this has answered a few questions, Kev. First question it's answered is people thought Maguire might come straight back in because he had that purple patch. Yeah. Ten Hag's, again, shown that his preferred centre-back partnership is Varane and Martinez. That's his favourite partnership. So that's a question answered. To me, if I'm Maguire, move on the summer. Move on this summer. Varane and Martinez is his preferred centre-back partnership. Of course, we need to go for shopping around for some centre-backs. Varane's not going to be able to do it forever, and there's injury concerns. But Varane and Martinez, the centre-backs are always about how they complement each other. Yeah. And he's proved that's his preferred one. And the next thing that he's proved is McTominay's on the bench. Everyone was like, why is Ten Hag so obsessed with McTominay? Why is he playing McTominay? And that's a question that I still ask myself. But Ten Hag's answered the question of, does McTominay make his best midfield three? No. Casemiro, Mainoo and Bruno is what Erik Ten Hag thinks is his best midfield three. And that would seem obvious to a lot of people, but I was worried for a long time he was going to substitute Mainoo out for Casemiro, because I thought he saw Mainoo was the 6 and Casemiro was the 6, and I didn't think he'd play them together. But I'm so glad he's done that, because, again, it proves that Ten Hag knows that that's his best midfield. And obviously, it's
a great balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good balance.
As the two in midfield, we've been subjected to the likes of McTominay and Fred over the years. He's tried McTominay and Eriksen, which clearly doesn't work. Once you address the middle of the park, I always say it on the fan forums as well, these are where games are won and lost. If you can control the midfield area, which we should be able to do that, not a problem today, because from me looking in, I can see that the balance is 100% right. And once you get that right, everything else around you should click. And that's it. I'm expecting that today. And we should be winning this game today. I said earlier, if for some reason we're not in the draw for the next round, come later on, it's going to be one of the biggest cup upsets ever. I don't want that. On paper now, you've seen the team that Erik Ten Hag has chosen to go with, and it's strong. Do you think that Casemiro... I mean, we'll do our players to watch, actually, and talk about this within that. So one of your players to watch was Kobe Mainoo. Yeah. And one of my players to watch was Casemiro. So they're kind of making up the double pivot today, and I'm so glad they've started together. So in terms of Casemiro and Mainoo together, Kev, and get your comments in the chat as well. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on this. In terms of how they'll play, do you think it will be just a 2 double pivot partnership where one gets forward, one stays back, and they kind of alternate? Do you think Mainoo will play more as an 8? Do you think Casemiro will play more as an 8? How do you see it working? I think they will probably alternate between the two of them, because I think they're both capable of getting forward, and they're both capable of doing that holding role. Now, I would look at this game and I'd be hoping, really, one thing we have missed is goals in that midfield area, and Casemiro brings us that. He until he got injured, he does bring you goals. He will chip in with goals. You've obviously got the legs then of Kobe Mainoo to kind of run the midfield, and I'm interested to see it from his perspective, from Mainoo's, because this is the first proper time we're going to see balance in that midfield. Sure, now I'm looking at that lineup, I'm like, thank God some of our players are back from injury. It's finally starting to look We've had a horrendous run of injuries, and we never want to use it as an excuse, but by God, you look at that team now, the balance that it's got to it, you know, it looks brilliant on paper. I just hope that they go out and, you know, put in a performance that justifies all them players being in that starting 11. But we should be winning this game, plain and simple.
Alejandro Conti says, hey guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Rashford situation. Rewind to the start. There was a long section on it. I mean, in terms of Casemiro, obviously sometimes he's one of my players to watch on here, and sometimes when he's coming back from like suspensions or injuries, it takes him a while to get back into it, and that's why I think it's good he's starting against Newport. No disrespect to them, but it's good to ease him back in. But in terms of how this benefits Bruno's our best creative outlet. Don't care what anyone says, he is. And he's not been as good as what we want him to be as recently this season, like a lot of our players haven't been. But he is our best creative outlet, and what you want to do is, as a manager, you need to be getting the best out of players' strengths and covering their weaknesses. That's what you should be doing. Man United have a habit of highlighting weaknesses and not getting the best out of players' strengths. I mean, look at Trent at Liverpool. He's not a very good defensive right back, but Klopp gets the best out of him by his, you know, attacking attributes, and this is what we should be doing. In terms of Bruno Fernandes, he's got flaws to his game, of course he does, but if you play to his strengths, he's a brilliant player to have in your team. Having the likes of Mainoo and Casemiro behind him gives him that solid base where he can play his best football. And we all know Fred wasn't good enough, but it allowed Bruno to be his best self, because, you know, they had that kind of, they stayed back and Bruno went on forward and did his thing.
Yeah, they were disciplined in that area.
Yeah, and they were nowhere near good enough. I've complained about them for a long time. But when you look at Mainoo and Casemiro, they're both technically good. Mainoo's composure on the ball is excellent. He can carry the ball. Casemiro's a destroyer in there. He's got the leadership. He's, you know, he can score goals, like you said. And they can just both kind of harness that midfield together. And I think it's a very complementary midfield to all three of them.
Yeah. And that's what it's all about, getting the right balance in that area. I'm really, really excited to see how this one goes, because there's players I mentioned like Lisandro Martinez. You know, if we were competitive, like I said earlier, and some players might have got a day off today, but we haven't been played well all season. But
it's not as if we've had loads of games. They've had weeks off already. So.
Exactly. So you go with your full strength team, and if you get into a position where you can make subs, then you do it. But nobody deserves a rest in this United team, because they've barely done anything all season. As a season, it's been really embarrassing.
We've got
45 minutes of football we've been getting. You know, not even 90 minutes of football from this team.
Lee J says, if Rasmus doesn't get any service with this lineup, we're in trouble. 2 CDMs might finally unlock Bruno too. Exactly, Lee. Yeah. So we've been saying, thanks to the super chat. Ghosty McToasty says, need to replace Shaw as well. Injury prone, cash in. I don't think we should, but Ghosty, quite a lot of people have that opinion. So yeah, I mean, it's a debate within the fan base. Colin Felix says, maybe Eric Ten Hag can make Antony captain for this game. I don't think that's going to happen. Bruno is captain. But last player to watch, Kev, who was your other player to watch again?
Martinez.
Yeah. Also back in the fold. The Butcher is back.
The RG
Just
Butcher.
Excited to see him with next to Varane as well.
It's great because he obviously he got his little kind of cameo role against Spurs. It just gives, as supporters, I felt we've lost that connection again that we kind of got back last year. But Martinez was such a huge part of that, because he's a fan's favourite. You know, the chants, the Argentina chants, when he comes on the field. And he's a bloody good footballer. You know, that helps as well. And a lot of what Manchester United did well last season, he was at the forefront of that. You need that aggression. That's what Lisandro Martinez brings to this team. To have him back in that team, it just looks like a solid back four. Obviously, Luke Shaw coming back in, but Martinez is huge. It's a great game for him to come in and hopefully get 90 minutes today, and 90, whatever it'll be, 98 minutes. Just to get back into the team, because we need to push on, you know, the second half of the season. We really need to be pushing for top 4, because it's been embarrassing. But getting these more senior players, the ones that were so good last season, back into this starting 11 will make a huge difference. Injuries have no doubt they've cost us this season, but we haven't got the squad depth. You know, when a player like Martinez drops out the team, and you look in and you bringing in Johnny Evans, he's done a solid job. Don't get me wrong. I got on the wrong side of Ricky. He'll be like, hey Kev, but he's done a job. But really, for the long term at Manchester United, you know, I think we all know Johnny Evans won't be at Manchester United. You know, come the summer, you would expect that they're not going to keep him on for another year. Martinez is at the forefront of this. You know, the new look United again, a Ten Hag signing. It's his guy.
Exactly, and I look at Martinez and I just think he just embodies what Manchester United is, and
He just gives the supporters a lift as well. You know, you felt that buzz when he come on against Tottenham and the crowd are all like, Argentina. He sets the tone. You know, he comes on, he'll nutmeg a player, he'll even just a challenge. Sometimes games can change purely through one player going through another one, you know, and just clearing the ball, and he brings that to the team. He gets the crowd going. It just changes the aggression. The aggression that he brings is totally different to a Maguire, a Lindelof, you know.
Anyone.
Yeah, anyone that you put in there. He's just totally different.
In that back four together, for me, it's Man United's best back four, so I'm happy to see it playing.
Him and Varane complement each other so well. We talk about these little clicks on the field or partnerships. They were brilliant last season, and hopefully we can keep them fit now till the end of the season. That they'll be, you know, have a huge say.
Exactly, it's important. Ten Hag needs to do well the second half of the season because, you know, INEOS is going to be watching and there's no excuses now. Injuries are starting to get better, touch wood, and hopefully it stays that way. My last player to watch was Ahmad, obviously not in the starting 11. I thought he might get a go, but
Are you disappointed
I knew Antony was going to start probably, but I am disappointed. I just see potential in Ahmad. I do like him. I wanted to see him play today, but you know, Antony's got the nod. That's fair enough. It's Ten Hag signing. He's the more senior player. But I'm hoping we'll get to see Ahmad off the bench because I do think that position is there for the taking if he wants it.
Nobody's nailed down that position, so that's why if he can take his opportunity, that there is a place for him there.
And it shows a lot as well that Eric Ten Hag's sending Pellistri out on loan, but he's keeping Ahmad.
Yeah.
So, we're pretty sure Pellistri's going to go out on loan and he's keeping Ahmad, and I think he sees a player there. So I want him to come on and get some minutes. Warren G says no Dangor. Dangor's at Port Vale on loan. That's why there's no Dangor. GSM says Ten Hag is United's best bet. He could head to Barca. I mean, Xavi, he's just left Barca, hasn't he? So, you know, the manager market's going to be very interesting this summer. But Kev, let's do some score predictions. What are you thinking going into this game? And everyone get your comments as well and what you're thinking.
Well, I'll stick with the prediction I've had to do through the United stand. I don't see any point in changing it. I did this a couple of hours ago, so I've said United will win 5-0. And after seeing that starting 11, it fills me with actually more confidence that he's not mixed it up too much. We've got players coming back. We should be too good for them. Famous last words here from Kev, because I know it'll probably get clipped up and then we get knocked out later on and everybody will be laughing at me. But yeah, I'm highly confident, really am. When you look at where the teams are...
What does Steve say?
Steve's a City fan. He's a knobhead. Yeah, we'll have to do a new segment, won't we? Ask Steve. We'll get Steve's prediction from the van. But yeah, what do you think?
It's a tough one because obviously Man United, we don't really score that many goals, and I think the highest we've ever had is 4 under Ten Hag against Chelsea end of last season, sort of dead rubber.
It'd be nice to get an early goal.
It would be.
We very rarely get early goals where we can set the tone for the game, because you know for a fact if we were to get into that winning position, you feel that the floodgates would open and United could really go to town on them. And yet, like you say, Antony, you mentioned a player before, you know, a lot of players here, there's question marks over a lot of them. They've got a massive opportunity today to go out there and silence critics, silence the likes of, you know, us two that ask questions. Why is he constantly getting picked? But yeah, I'm confident and I'm going to stick with my 5-0 prediction.
It's 5-0, Kev.
Yeah.
Love it. I hope it comes true. I think this fan base deserves to see a few goals. And you know what? You can't. No disrespect against the Newport, magic of the FA Cup, they could do a number on us. But League 2 side, get the goals flowing. Nice to see Holland get a couple as well. You know, get his confidence up. I'm excited. I'm very excited. You know, football is back, and I'm excited. But one thing I do want to bring in is it's coming out from the MEN that Wan-Bissaka is missing from today's game as a precaution.
Precaution.
A precaution of what? Maybe he's on the edge of injury. I don't know what, but it just says that.
Cover up FC. We're at it again. We're covering up.
For a precaution, make what you will of that. What do you guys make of that in the comments as well? A lot of people saying 5-0. Kev. A lot of people going on with you. Jim's91 says, should Pellistri go on loan now after the Rashford chaos? I think Rashford will still get a pass. I'm not saying he should. I just think that's what this club will do. Patrick Larkin, Rashford was over in Belfast visiting his former academy friend Roshan Williams, who signed for the Northern Ireland team, Larn. He was hammered Wednesday and Thursday night. Thank you, Patrick.
I tell you what, one person that won't stand for this, and obviously the news about Omar Barrera, coming into Manchester United as CEO, we talk about structure. If you see some of the videos of him, he basically when he was at Manchester City, and they're talking about players and what they bring to the team, obviously they look at the wages. If they're going to go down that same route, Rashford is going to be top of that list. They will say, what's his transfer value? What are we paying him a week? Is he putting in performances?
What are we getting out of that?
Exactly. And this is the man.
And could we be spending it elsewhere for better output?
It's a huge, huge task, but this will be the man. He's done it at Manchester City. He's going to come into United, and these questions will get asked. They'll say, well, how long's he been in the first team? Show me the stats. What's he pulling up? Is he worth this money? Huge calls. I think that's the exciting thing from a United fan's perspective, is that there is change finally on the footballing side of things. Not another money man, to come in and put United's name to a cereal or a milkshake or whatever. You're getting somebody that actually knows football, business and football, and that can only be a good thing for United. There will be big calls made at Manchester United over this next season or so. Huge ones.
Exactly. Norwich just did score to take it to 4-2, but he was offside. Liverpool beating them 4-1. Liverpool, Liverpool are doing great this season, obviously the story of Klopp and everything like that, but they've stuck 4 goals past Norwich. I want us to stick a few goals today. Abridaman says, Antony's selfish attempt could ruin this stunning XI. I mean, let's just wait and see, to be honest. Someone said, what about Mason Mount? I think he's rumoured to be back for the Wolves game, but not quite ready yet. Adding Mason Mount to this as well is going to be interesting. IJJ says, sad state of affairs, total combined wage bill of Newport players wouldn't be more than what we pay Antony, and we still have doubts of not qualifying. With United, you just never know. Obviously, I think we're going to win, but you just never, ever know. No. I'm going to go with, this sounds boring, but I'm going to go with 3-0 to Man United.
It's not boring, I'll take that now.
I don't think we're going to concede, I hope not, with that back four and Binder. Hopefully they'll have a good game.
You'd think we'd be too strong.
I'm going to go with 3-0. I don't think we'll score loads of goals, but 3-0, it'll do me. Just get through, and this is how I'm precautious I am right now. That's what this season's done to me. But 3-0 is still a decent win. Carl B says, Beth, Mount's best season in Chelsea was on the left. That is true. He was best on the left for Chelsea. If Rashford keeps missing training, then who knows? He could take up that spot, and you have Garnacho off the right, Holland up front.
He needs to stay off TikTok, Mount. I think he's been on TikTok more than he's been on the pitch for United this season.
I'd rather my players on TikTok than out getting.
Yeah.
Out on the Raz, as they say.
Yeah.
Missing trainings. If you're on TikTok, I'm not bothered, to be honest with you. But interesting stuff. And Garnacho, Casemiro, and Højlund with 2. I mean, Kev, who do you fancy scoring tonight? I think
I'd love to see Højlund get a few today. I think the goals will come from them areas. You're looking at, I fancy Højlund. Do you know what? I'm gonna have to bet on this after it. Højlund hat-trick today. Højlund hat-trick.
Højlund hat-trick. Get on.
I'm having a double on that.
Yeah, get on it. Get on the Akkers.
Definitely.
Kev.
Yeah, and it's a great game for these players to go out in as well. It'll be a great atmosphere. Go out, express yourselves. But again, there is question marks over certain players. But just go out, get the business done, and enjoy it. We're the Premier League club here. These Newport supporters, yes, they go and watch Newport, but obviously Manchester United are in town, so that's what they're coming for. And Ten Hag has not disappointed because he's put a full-strength team out, so they get the added bonus of, getting to watch that as well. So very excited.
Ten Hag said, in every competition we're in, we want to win. We're not in a moment where he can underestimate anyone. And that's what he said in reply about his strong lineup. And I think that's the humble attitude to have.
You have to.
In time.
Yeah. It's all right me sitting here and saying we should be winning. because I genuinely believe that we should be winning this game. You know, it would be one of the biggest cup upsets ever if we were not to be in the draw later on. So you go out there, but yeah, of course he's going to throw. It's only natural that you throw in that little bit of caution, because at the end of the day, it boils down to it's just 11 players against 11 players out on the field. And for some reason, they want it more than Manchester United, and they go at us. You know, good luck to them. There could be an upset on the cards, but personally, I just don't see it. I really don't. I'm not prepared for it anyway, if it does happen. Exactly.
It's one of them situations as well where you want to see Bayern have a bit of action, but you also don't want any unnecessary
That's why I was saying
pressure.
It's a strange game for him to come into, because everybody's wanted to see him, but at the same time, you would really not want him to be busy today. So in that sense, if we do come away and we win the game convincingly and he keeps a clean sheet, you kind of look at it and think, well, it's a tough one to judge, isn't it?
Question for you. If Bayern gets a clean sheet today, I know it's only Newport in League 2 in the FA Cup, but would you keep him in for the Wolves game?
Depends how much he impresses. And again, I don't really want to see that much of him today, because that would suggest that United have had a bad game if he's going to be busy. But there's definitely there's an argument there to be had. I don't think Onana's ripped up any trees in the African Cup of Nations. He was obviously dropped as well, wasn't he, by Eto'o for Cameroon. You know, it's
crazy.
Something that you would not imagine. Maybe
I think that's more to do with the fact he came late and there was probably issues behind the scenes.
It was just an absolute joke.
But the whole thing was a farce.
Yeah.
You leave it under the farce category and file it away. But guys, the
horrendous suit he was wearing, you know, and I was like, what is he wearing? Them mad shoes on and.
The build-up has been incredible. Kev, you've been a brilliant guest to have on, and we're excited for the fan forum, hopefully celebrating a win with a lot of goals. You're going 5-0, I'm going 3-0. Get your comments in down below. But what should the chat raid Mark with on his watch-along? What should they go in and say?
There's a good one. I can't think.
What should they go in and say? I usually have
in the comment section.
I usually have Faz in here to come up for me.
Yeah,
SK says, imagine feeling iffy versus Newport, mental state of affairs, 3-0 United. I hope. Okay. I'm going to go...
What, so they raid the chat and then Mark
raid the chat with the butcher is back. The butcher is back. Raid the chat with the butcher is back. Thank you everyone for watching. Let's hope we get some goals under our belts. Kev, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go over and enjoy the watch along. The butcher is back. Raid that into Mark's chat now, and we will see you afterwards for the fan forum.